Hello, our users. It strikes me that that wasn't one of the more memorable songs in my playlist here. I think I'm 143 sessions in. I may be running a little low on the record collection here. That one did remind me, though, of with the headphones on. Again, they sound different with the headphones on, but it reminded me of a mashup of the Peter Gunn theme, if you know what that is, and Mission Impossible, the theme song to Mission Impossible. Whoever composed that, I wonder if they were fans of those two kind of sources. I know Mission Impossible is a TV show. I don't know what Peter Gunn, what the theme comes from. I know that song very well, but doesn't matter. Hello, good people. My name's John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology, about a 12-year user of R for what I call normal, boring statistical and analytical operations. But pretty early on in my R kind of experience, I got connected with and I got to learn about a series of packages called R Markdown and how you can weave your analyses into the write up of those analyses. And it kind of consumed me because an area of my research as an industrial organizational psychologist is error and minimizing error in processes. And immediately it stuck to me. And I'm like, oh, that is what we need to kind of help some of the common errors and silly errors that are made just in the process of doing work when you're doing work with data. Because you don't just do analyses, you're eventually going to have to write them up and communicate them. And why not communicate them in the same environment that you're doing the analyses? Doggone it. So that's why we're here every week, just to promote this way of doing work and be a resource for people that might be interested in doing it and learning how to do it, and just knowing that there's other people out here doing it. There's plenty of people that do it, but there's still a lot of people that are just unfamiliar with this way of structuring your work. I don't know. Maybe I'll take some suggestions here, but it's possible that framing it as using R to author is not the best way to entice new people in, because the people that are scared to do this generally, in my experience in the social sciences, social and behavioral sciences, R is still kind of a big scary thing. But with AI, R's not scary, Python's not scary. They're all accessible. So hang out with us here on Tuesdays. Every Tuesday from 7 to 8 Eastern, I'll be here. And there's resources always. So in the comments, please take a look at the slides for this week. There's resources embedded throughout the slides to help you on your journey to kind of build skills using these processes and making your own websites and books and reports and slides. But the slides are just a game changer to me. These slides that you're looking at, I still have so much fun putting these slides together. And it's all done with Quarto. And Quarto is the software that we're going to take a look at tonight. Quarto is kind of the second generation. I mentioned earlier our Markdown. Quarto is kind of a one-stop shop for all of the individual packages that I used to use to produce different things like websites or books or reports or particularly formatted papers. I can do it all right now from within Quarto, and that is super cool. So we'll take a look at the newest Quarto version 1.10. By the way, this week's theme, there's always a cartoonish theme on these weekly sessions, is Ben 10. And I don't know Ben 10. I'm kind of curious about Ben 10 because he seems to have this very powerful watch. And I'd heard of him before, but the watch seems to have monsters in it. Or it looks to me like it has monsters in it. And some of these monsters look kind of familiar. I think I know that guy from Star Wars, guy or girl, sorry. But some of these look kind of familiar. So I'm kind of curious about Ben 10, but I really don't know anything about him. I might, after this session, go watch a Ben 10 cartoon if it's available on YouTube. So every week, because we look at we look at features in an exploratory manner every week before we explore that week's feature focus, we'll kind of recap what happened the previous week. The other thing I keep wanting to mention is when I started this 143 sessions ago, I didn't really want to cover little topics that are relevant for authoring using R or Python or Julia or whatever the language is that you prefer. I wanted to have it more like a interactive kind of, hey, if you're doing something and want some somebody to kind of bend an ear about, I can be here for that. That's why I'm live. So I I don't mind looking at these features, and it's something I'm kind of appreciative that I'm forced to do it for these weekly sessions. But I just want to also highlight that if someone pops by and has a question and is doing something and is just kind of wondering about maybe experience, because with AI you don't really need to know so much like how to do something. AI is great about that, but if you want to know why, I'm noticing that AI, I'm a little worried that with the great help that AI provides, we're all going to be able to do stuff, know how to do stuff, because AI essentially does that, but maybe not know as much deeply about the why of it being done, and that does concern me. So, but if you're interested in the why to doing something or even the how, just pop it in the comments and I'll try to keep an eye on those, and that always takes priority. Okay. So before we get into Quarto, we're going to recap what happened last week, but we can't just jump into that. We got to have our transition. So, Mr. Narrator, what happened last week, please?
Last time you remember, Bullwinkle was guarding the suitcase full of stolen bank money when suddenly the bottom dropped out of the plot.
Oop! Termites!
But no, frantically tugging on the suitcase was our old nemesis, Boris Badenov.
Let go, you stupid moose!
I'm not giving up to no talking termite!
Fortunately, the sheriff was outside Bullwinkle's cell and heard the commotion. He immediately went to the moose's aid. But unfortunately, Boris's gang also arrived on the scene. Fortunately, Rocky zoomed in looking for the sheriff, but unfortunately...
Make up your mind, will you?
Get him in there! Oh, hey, babyface, I got it! I got the suitcase!
Then let's get out of here.
And led by Boris, the light-fingered 5-2 dashed out of the hole, dragging the suitcase with them.
Grumpy Boris is the best Boris. I love it when he just gets kind of impolite. You stupid moose. I love that. So we'll have to see next week if our heroes catch up to Boris and his gang, who now again have the suitcase full of money. It's gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, but Boris has it now. So last week we took a look at a Quarto extension, and this extension just extends the out of the can kind of native capabilities of that software that we're going to look at tonight called Quarto. And this particular capability was focused on an invoice. Now, it was not only focused, so you can link to it here on the slide title if you would like to. It'll take you to a description. Well, I guess I'll look at it. So it'll take you to a description of what this extension does. There's some clever little CSS here that tilts this image if you hover over it. And then it walks you through different IDEs. Our studio is slowly kind of losing priority in terms of acknowledging IDEs. So this actually prompted me to think of something for tonight. So tonight we might, when we look at Quarto 1.10, I might actually pull up Jupyter Lab instead of our studio. Now, Jupyter Lab, I love it as an environment to kind of mess around in, but it does violate some of my fundamental core principles with regard to reproducibility in terms of structuring what you do. But we might take a look at it tonight. So there's a link on there that explains what this extension actually does. The installation itself, anytime you're working with these extensions, it's going to be easiest if you do so from within a project directory. Now, most of you are operating within RStudio. So within RStudio, when you fire it up, you're going to want to, now this might take a hot tick for it to fire up on my local session. I might, oh, that wasn't too bad, was it? Just file new project instead of new file. You just want to go to new project, and that'll walk you through the steps to create a project directory, and then within that directory you keep all your files and don't have to worry about specifying where to look for stuff for the most part. And so this extension also is going to be easiest to use if you first create a project directory and always just access this capability from within that project directory. Um, and then something a little different as well, for those of you that might be familiar with kind of the package ecosystem and downloading, accessing, using something like ggplot or any of the tidyverse packages. You can also interact with Quarto in terms of the install. I'm sorry. You can also interact. You can also access. My goodness, I kept wanting to say activate. I don't know why, but the word I was searching for was access. You can also access most of these extensions from within R itself, from within the terminal. Just as it's going to be a long night. As you might type any other command here, either at the prompt or you can do this through script. You can actually access these extensions via R, but more broadly, they're accessed through the terminal, and the terminal is just access to kind of your computer, your CPU itself. And so this is the way people used to interact with computers before Windows and the Microsoft version of Windows became popular. We used to have to actually type commands here. So you can see there was a Quarto command that I just typed last time I had this open, and that was, please give me Quarto's version, because tonight we're gonna actually install the new version, and I wanted to verify that it didn't actually have it installed. So when I say navigate to the terminal, that's what I mean. And you can do that from within RStudio. You don't need to, but you can. And then you just paste this command here, and this command it's a Quarto command, so that means it's going to be specified outside of R, and that's what the terminal does. It's just the one way in which you can actually activate the capability and get it locally from where it's located. And it's located currently on GitHub, but you can access that and put it on your local machine. And then you can do fun things like write these scripts. And the scripts for these invoices are, I just noticed I made a little tiny mistake here, but we'll come back to that. These scripts are mostly self-contained within the YAML. The YAML is the front matter of these QMD documents. QMD is the three-letter extension that identifies a Quarto markdown document. And so the front matter is identified by these three ticks, or they're not ticks, I'm sorry, three dashes to start, and then three dashes, probably not going to be able to see it at the bottom of my kind of truncated screen here, but there's three dashes at the bottom as well. And for most documents, the body of what you're interested in communicating comes after the YAML. The YAML mostly just contains metadata for the document. It says, what are the margins? What are the fonts? What type of format do I want to create? Is it a PDF? Is it an HTML file? Is it a slide deck? But in the case of this extension, the extension author chose to contain most of the capability of the invoicing within the YAML itself. Now, the one thing that you may want to do with this extension that's not located in the YAML is, if you want to bypass the author's actual table that presents what's being invoiced, you can do that in the body of the document. Now, what I missed here on the simplified version was I missed the three opening dashes and the three closing dashes, and I kind of remember missing that when I put these together. What I will do when I get off here tonight is I will go in and correct that. Or let me just do it now. I can show you kind of really quickly kind of my workflow on this and how I do it. So I have a project directory for these weekly live streams. Some of you have probably seen this. There's going to be a few things that you'll notice here in terms of my local machine. And one thing is going to be the timing. So I have a lot going on right now. And so the timing of things in terms of just opening, accessing, things like that, it's going to look to you, I'm sure, as though it is as though it is a little goofy. And this also occurs when I render my documents. And the reason that occurs when I render my documents has to do with the way in which I'm actually publishing so everyone can access them. So I host my slides on GitHub. GitHub has a capability, a feature called GitHub Pages, and GitHub Pages is a fantastic way to share information that you work on using these processes that we talk about weekly. But GitHub Pages does kind of have an expectation in terms of where to look for the files that you create. And so I have a duplicated process going on here that I don't need to have. I could actually make this simpler, but it hasn't really bothered me. So because of that duplicated process, where when I create something, it's actually being created in two different locations. It's being mirrored. So in addition to appearing here in my folder in which I'm working, it's also duplicating it into a docs folder. So I'm going to call this midstream fix to YAML. And then that'll probably confuse me later because I'm like, my YAML's fine. Why is the message saying that it's a YAML fix? And it's not really a YAML fix. What it actually is it is a fix to the way in which the simplified script here is presented to you good people. And so if I just give it a few seconds, sometimes it takes up to a minute, you'll see that update kind of pop through here. And so within the author of the Invoice extensions kind of sample files, he has two different examples, and those two different examples we played with quite a bit last week. And one is a kind of what I would call a simplified invoice, and the other is a more elaborate invoice. So if you look at this elaborate script, and you can use the clipboard and copy this and just paste it into your local environment. But there's 50 some lines of code here, and there's only 15 on the simplified version. And that results in two different types of invoice. So here's the simplified invoice. I have Lightbox enabled, so you should be able to kind of zoom in on this and take a look at it. You'll notice there's no colors, there's no special formatting. That's fine. It's just kind of a straightforward invoice. If someone was after me and said, hey, I want money for something, I'd be perfectly fine with a straightforward invoice. Don't slather it with slop. Just give me the straight beans here in terms of what I owe you and why I owe you and what you actually did. And here's what the more elaborate one does. There's a few things on here that kind of stand out. The biggest one is probably just the color, and the color is coming through here on the. It's probably okay for us to do a refresh now. So if we look at my simplified script and I do a refresh, that should come in now with the changes that we just made. And that's my weekly process that I use to create these slides. So the elaborate script, it actually has some branding information here at the bottom, and so it's somewhat hidden. We might have to actually pull up so apologies for this, but we might have to actually pull up an actual script editor to see the full extent of all of the branding that's specified. But this is all the branding that was used to create things like a specific font and a specific weight or styling to the font, a color to be used for headings. It's Dodger blue. It's funny, when I first learned R, that was kind of a popular variety of blue. This is before I learned about hex codes. Dodger blue and cornflower blue were kind of two popular semantic labels for bluish colors. But so it's fun. It's nice. I like it. The only caveat that we talked about last week was that it's the way that it's structured is intended for a European audience. And so the European, and I should probably be we're speculating. So I don't know. I think it might actually be English in origin in terms of England or the UK anyway. But we're kind of focusing here on this VAT. That's a value added tax, I believe, is what the acronym stands for. And it's something that is prominent in European nations, but I'm an American, I think. Last I checked, I was an American. And that's not something that we have. We have sales tax, we have state tax, and that's something that is probably most akin to what VAT is. So VAT currently on this extension is baked into this automated table. And so again, there's a way to bypass that, and it's just create your own table. So if you didn't like that, you could do that. Or the alternative is you could get kind of under the hood a little bit. And with AI now, it's really easy to do that. You can get under the hood and you can just say, hey, AI, can you help me? I like this extension. I like the invoice a lot in terms of automating the math involved in the template or in the calculations. Can you just get rid of the VAT column, please? I would appreciate that. You can rename it, etc. So it was a neat capability. I'm glad that we checked it out. I wasn't familiar with it prior to last week. I don't have any current need for it, but I think the next time I do have a need, I probably will try to use it. And I'll probably try to amend that template a little bit. If I do so, I'll probably do that. I'll probably show on this weekly session how that was done, or even just use the weekly session to do it, to actually make that amendment. So if that's something that interests you, let me know, and certainly happy to do it. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're going to do this week. So this week, I thought last week we found out that Quarto, the software that we're using to create these slides and also the invoices we just talked about, it just came out with a new version, and that version is Quarto 1.10 or 1.10. And if you would like to, I went a little long on last week's recap, so I'm not going to cover everything. But if you would like to take a look at the listing of all of the things that 1.10 is doing, you can just follow the hyperlink and it'll document those. There's a kind of a version log there that you can check. I thought we would just check out 4 different things. And so the 4 different things that I identified that 1.10 at least is the 1.10 team has identified as something that they were focused on is the accessibility checks result in a clearer report. Now we checked out Xcore a few weeks ago in terms of what your document, and I believe this is only HTML documents. We only did this a few weeks ago, but I don't remember off the top of my head. I think this was primarily HTML. It might be only HTML, but there's a capability on HTML documents to do these accessibility checks in terms of things like, is a visually impaired user going to have difficulty navigating this document that you created? And then there's a fix or a capability that was considered with regard to shortcodes, and I thought this was a little funny, so I actually did an AI search myself. So I asked, well, why would people want to use a shortcode within an equation? And this is the AI answer I got. So there's a link to it if you're interested in that. It just was something that hadn't occurred to me with the way that I'm using shortcodes. So we'll revisit shortcodes and we'll see how they operate within equations. And then there were a couple of font issues. So the main traditional way that the Quarto team by default has us generate PDF documents is through an engine or a compiler. The engine tends to be the word that they prefer, called LaTeX. And there's alternatives. And for years, I have used alternatives when something goes wrong with a PDF. So you try LaTeX, you try PDF LaTeX, and there's different engines that you can specify. But the default one, there was a concession, there was a capability folded into Quarto 1.10 that actually makes the default one less likely to crash with regard to fonts. So we're going to check that out. And then with typist fonts as well, this one seems like to me a smaller issue in terms of, and I've noticed it before. We might have even noticed it last week. So there's error messages that pop up and say, "Hey, uh, just a warning. I don't see this font as being available." And so what they did was they actually there's a lot under the hood here, it looks like, in terms of where the processing takes place. And by the way, we could probably do a full week on it. Would be great if I had a little more pull. I could still do it maybe, but just thinking about reaching out to someone that's involved with the development of this software to really get a helpful explanation of where the processing takes place. Because it doesn't always take place in the same location depending on the type of document that you're creating. So some of this, especially with PDF documents seem to just give the most grief to everybody, and I got to imagine that's true for the development team as well. So these PDF documents that we create, they're actually, we're crafting them in a manner that looks very similar to everything else, but there's an intermediate step that creates either a tex file, TEX, the extension TEX, or a TYP file, which is a typist type intermediary document. And so there's different processors that are involved with different stages depending on the type of document that you're trying to create. So all of that is to say they're trying to make things as smooth as possible behind the scenes. So we're going to check that out. So I'm going to leave this open. I'm going to try to leave it open. Oftentimes I have difficulty leaving this thing open because I have too many tabs going on and I can't find it. But I think what I would like to do is I would like to see what things look like before 1.10, and then I'm going to install 1.10 and we can see what they look like afterwards. So I was thinking about doing this within Jupyter Lab, but maybe we'll just do it. Maybe we'll just do it within our studio. No, let's do it within Jupyter Lab. Why not? So we talked, I don't know, a while ago about using different IDEs, and we've checked out Positron, we've checked out VS Code, we've checked out Pluto, which is used for Julia. We've checked out other ones as well. My kind of go-to still is RStudio. I love RStudio. I think it's fun. It's great. But I also really like I really like the Jupyter Lab interface and just kind of navigation of it. So now there are, just to remind you, there are kernels that power the analytical components of things that you author within, or projects that you're involved with using Jupyter Lab. I currently have 3 different engines that are available to me, so I'm going to go ahead and choose R, which doesn't matter because I'm not really going to use it. So I could put a bit of R code in here and execute that, and that's what it looks like. What we're going to do is we're not going to deal with R code, but we're going to deal with markdown, and I'm going to put a YAML in here. And we're going to specify format. And I want to do some theming of this as well. So let's look up our, because I think we can, it's easiest to kind of see some, we're going to check out accessibility checks. And it's easiest to do that if we kind of play with a theme or mess with fonts and make fonts kind of tougher to see. So we'll do an image without a caption. We'll do an image with a caption. We'll do maybe different themes, and then we'll just kind of add stuff. So this is heading, second level heading. We'll call. I'm not very creative tonight. Sorry. Second level heading, and then lorem ipsum. Lorem ipsum. You know what? Let's do this. There is a Quarto shortcode. Since we're going to be talking about them anyway, there's a Quarto shortcode for generating lorem ipsum text. I remember seeing it. I think we might have even checked it at one point. So if we want to add 2 paragraphs, we should be able to. And again, you can do this. You can do this within our studio as well. Now, if I in the Jupyter Lab environment, if I hit Control Enter, it's going to execute this code cell. And the shortcode is not yet being executed because that's a Quarto shortcode, and it doesn't know that we have anything to do with Quarto, I'm sure. So let's see what some Quarto themes are. And there's 25 of them. And I want to look for one that's maybe, there we go, like dark or cyborg. There's a slate, I think, that's kind of, yeah. Slate's very gray, so this is good because it's probably going to give us an accessibility issue. So I'm just going to do this theme in Slate, and it's got a code block. It's got some output. You know, what I haven't tried on this is I have not tried the code command. So that looks like it might be a little off. So that's something I'm going to have to look into. I can't, that's not something I'm going to be able to probably play with tonight here. So let's call this Quarto 10. There's not much in there, but there's no render button, there's no preview button within Jupyter Lab, so we do have to engage with the terminal. So I'm going to say Quarto preview, Quarto 10, IPY and B. And if Quarto is working, it should give me access to a local version of that. And there we go. And so this is all I really wanted. This is our Quarto document generated within Jupyter Lab. And you can see that there's going to be some visibility issue here. So I'm hoping that the Axe Core kind of picks up on that. Let's add a little more content. I do want at least a picture. So let's look for a picture. Let's look for a picture of a Greek, or is lorem ipsum? That's probably Roman, right? Roman orator. It's got to be a cartoon. So I can't do. Oh, there we go. Look at this guy. I kind of like that image, but it's got a kind of has a little watermarky thing on it, which I know it doesn't matter. These people look happy. Let's do that. So I'm going to copy that image address, and it already looks kind of goofy to me. So I'm, oops. Sorry, people. Just by default, because I use RStudio so much, I just clicked on RStudio, forgetting that we were actually in Jupyter Lab. But let's see if we can pull that. Just using the address. I don't like the end there where it says the v la da 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 da. It looks like it did come through. Okay. Let's do one more image as well, because I'm going to put some alternate text on this image, and we'll give it a section title here as well. So I'm going to say no fig cap, and then this one we will give a fig cap. And you can tell from the italicized nature of what I was typing there is that it was interpreting that as a R comment, because I hadn't specified that it's not code, it's actually text, or it's markdown more specifically. All right, let's get a different illustration going here. What is this? Again, I just don't like the Shutterstock at the bottom. I think that's what I'm objecting to. I like that picture. So we'll put another picture in here. And it may, there's an alternative text kind of specification that you can make as well. And that probably is going to be more important. So let's do alternative text on an image. Quarto. And I've done this before, but I haven't yet gotten into the good habit of actually of actually kind of doing it regularly. There it is. Fig alt is what I was looking for. And I think uh, this is really what the axe check should pick up on. It won't pick up on inaccuracy, so we'll just leave that it's a drawing of an elephant, even though it's not a drawing of an elephant. Um, let's change those a little bit. So I don't want to say this is another picture. I'll say this is a centurion. O-N? A-N? O-N. Or we can just call him an octogenarian, I guess. He'd be a lot older than that if that image is at all historically accurate. A drawing of a Roman centurion. All right, I like it. So now did we do a preview yet? I think I might have exited the preview. So let me regenerate that preview. And so I've mentioned this before on these weekly sessions. Within our studio, there's not really a meaningful differentiation between previewing and rendering. Within different IDEs, there is. At least I haven't noticed one within our studio. Our studio, um, it works great. It works fine, but I don't make the same consequential distinction between either rendering something or previewing something. Here in JupyterLab, we are gonna see a difference. And so if I change something and keep my preview open here within JupyterLab, and I'll try to keep these separate here if I can, we'll see if I just add 2 plus 3 and make that 2 plus 4 instead and save it. Now you're going to see the preview automatically or very quickly actually reflecting that. Okay, so now we have our nice little document here. Let's actually put in a accessibility check and see what it looks like with 1.9.73. I think I have. By the way, you can check it here. So I'm going to interrupt my preview, and it says 1.9.73. There is also a shortcode for version, so we can say here before our lorem ipsum, and I'm going to back that down to just one paragraph. But we can say we are on Quarto version, and then the shortcode convention is these 2 curly brackets, angled brackets, and then they have some built-in shortcodes. Lipsum is actually one of them, but version is another one. And so I think that's okay. I'm going to change this from second level heading to shortcode use because that reflects what we're actually doing. And let's put in some accessibility checks. So I'm going to do Quarto accessibility. And I want axe true, but I want axe true, and I also want output document. So let's try this. Output document should actually give me the axe core findings within the rendered document itself. I almost opened up our studio again. And that should be located under the format. And again, this is something that you just kind of get with a little bit of experience using this. I'm going to save. And this time I'm going to render. I'm actually going to render. I'm going to render this document. So we'll get an actual physical HTML file if it works. I didn't like something. So it didn't like where we put axe. And it looks to me like it's a matter of kind of second, third level heading stuff. So one thing that I'm not familiar with is Jupyter Labs kind of built-in indentation. I do have my RStudio set up exactly how I want it. So the indents kind of give me proper indentation in terms of the way that I structure things. But it looks like that may not have liked what we had there. So let's try it again. There we go. So that looks a lot better. Now if I look in my files on the project files on the left here, I have an HTML file. It's not, okay, so it's not picking up Slate. It's actually not, the shortcode came through fine. That's interesting. I don't think it would do that in, or maybe it's just not picking up the theme. I guess maybe a theme is over. I thought theme was at the same first level indent, but looks like maybe not. Yeah, it's still not coming through. So let's try a preview. I'm kind of wouldn't mind spending a little bit of time on this. But that's being selfish because I'm probably the only one that cares about that. Okay, so the preview's coming through just as we expect. Looks like there's something a little funny on the render. But here's the Axe code identification. So it says there's some serious problems, there's some moderate problems, and there's some critical problems. Now, the nice thing about these is they do actually they do give you some feedback in terms of where the problem exists as you hover over the actual feedback that you're getting in this accessibility window here. So it says there's a serious issue in terms of the contrast between the foreground and background, and we knew that, and that's why we chose Slate to see if we could introduce that. So we don't have minimum color contrast ratio thresholds, but we knew that would happen. Order of heading semantically correct. That's bizarre. I've never seen that before. So heading level should increase only by 1. Did I jump 2? So it's saying I might have had like 1 octothorpe and then 4 octothorpes instead of going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So let's see. I don't remember doing that. I have 2. It probably just doesn't like that I didn't have 1 to begin with. I don't know if I... Okay, I don't know if I... Well, it's all about screen readers, right? Picking up on that. So I did start with a second level heading, not a first level heading. So I guess that makes sense. And then the third thing that we knew that we should have alternative text. And we do have alternative text in the Centurion figure, but we don't in the initial figure. So now what Quarto 1.10 is supposed to do is one of the things it's supposed to do is to make the Axe core output a little easier to read, a little easier to digest. So I'm going to take a screen cap of this, and you know, you can thank your friendly neighborhood R session person here that I probably not going to get to all of these tonight because I spent so much time on this one. But I'm just going to take a screen cap so we can see what it is, and then I'm not going to save it, but we will install Quarto. We will install Quarto 1.10, and then we'll see what kind of feedback we get. So I think everything's saved here that I want to save. I'm going to, we did create that document with the most recent rendering. I'm going to close out of so much that I have open. I can leave this open, but I want my command prompt back, so I'm going to do a Control C in this environment. There we go. So we got that. Figures, we don't need. Accessibility checks, we are going to want to come back to, I think. We don't need our Centurion anymore. But so the Xcode check should run a clearer report. It also does some offline stuff that we're not going to be able to check. But we should see violations listed by impact first, then conformance level to these standards. The report overlay also received its own accessibility and styling fixes. I don't know if you noticed, but I had a difficult time kind of seeing in back of the accessibility window when it came up in the document. It was like it was blocking some stuff. So we'll see. Oh, this is important. So uses theme and brand independent colors and no longer inherits page styling. So that's going to be important because it also came through in the slate styling that we had. So I'm kind of excited to see this. Even though we're not going to have time to look at everything, I'm excited that we're looking at this. I am. I tell you what, I'm not just saying that. I am actually excited.
What?
Excited. So let's see where we can actually download this. So Quarto 1.10 is the download page. And here's the window. It looks like the Windows is kind of the most prominent one, which is funny because when I see people doing this stuff, they're almost always doing it. And by the way, there is a little download going on in my upper right hand corner up here. So I didn't get much feedback, but I do see that there is something actually going on. When I see people who seem to use these processes a lot, they're almost always on a Mac. So I don't know. As a professor, I hated students on Macs because even on PC, and I'm just saying this because we have a little time while it's downloading, but on PCs even, there was always this issue of where is stuff? And I would always have these ridiculous discussions with my students, and I could predict how they went. So maybe at some point I kind of just led into it because I thought, just sadistically, maybe it was funny or something. But where are the files? They're on my computer. Well, I know they're on your computer, but it was like an Abbott and Costello routine. It was like the concept of folders or locations, like a known location on the computer, and it became a worse issue over the years. And maybe it was just an age gap, but that issue on PCs was somehow worse on Macs. So on Macs, it would just the concept of navigating folders was just foreign. So let's see. We got it. It did something weird so I don't know. I'm not used to this little feedback on an install, and I don't remember this happening on previous versions of Quarto. Now remember, we already did verify that I'm on version 1.9.37. So we'll do the install. For me, this isn't going to have much consequence in terms of who has access, because I don't think it'll have any consequence. Now Quarto is great because this is all you need to do. Like I said, it's different than packages that you use within R, like ggplot or the ggplot2 or the tidyverse, dplyr, whatever your favorite package is. Lubridate, I love Lubridate. That's a great package. The psych package is fantastic as well. For me, a psychologist. But Quarto, you just need it on your computer, and all of these IDEs will find it. They're all. The install takes care of where it needs to be and who needs to see it, which is great because we saw it with, I think it was Python. Was it Python? It might have even been JupyterLab. where that install, there was like a there was an actual step that you needed to attend to make sure that the program was going to be visible to everything that needed to see it. Okay, so let's do a new check now and see what our version is after that. Hey, look at that. So we updated versions. That is great. So let's go into Jupyter Lab again. And it should have our notebook file just kind of open by default because we didn't close it. So if I rerun this, and we'll try to render it as well, because that's odd to me that the preview and the render were having such kind of different looks to them. So I'm going to go ahead at the terminal, we'll say Quarto preview, and then the name of the file, quarto1.10.ipython notebook. And then it should give us a little local access with a hyperlink, which is great. Hey, look at that. That is, okay, that's neat. That is quite a bit different. So, it still kind of is having this, it still has this get out of my way kind of user experience aspect to it, at least when I ask for this to be presented within the document itself. But it is different in terms of the presentation. And so the big thing I really like is that we now have independent styling. So the other thing that they did that they wanted to point out was the actual putting into a series of the violations, and it's saying that it is now doing it in terms of criticality or in terms of the importance of it. Now, one interesting thing that's coming up here is we had serious, moderate, and critical. So if we were to order those in terms of consequence, it would be critical, serious, moderate, I would think. But I'm not seeing the moderate issue come up anymore. So maybe there was something. Yeah, I don't see it. So we do have the alternate text. We don't have the heading levels. So let's see if we can. Did I fix that and not realize it? Let's go back in. No, we started with 2. Let's start with 3 and then go to 5 and see if it doesn't like that. So we're trying to make the violation a bit more egregious here. And I don't see it in the preview, so let's try a rendering again. And it was, like I said, that was surprising to me that the styling, the theming didn't come through in our rendered document. I have so much open. Let's see, Quarto 10, HTML. Yeah, it's still not coming through. And we're not getting, so something, maybe it might be in that preview window that I have. So let's see if we can open this with in a browser. Nope, still not coming through. What else can I open it in? So that's something different. It looks to me like this is an IDE issue, but it's not acting in a way that I expect it to as someone coming from a primarily RStudio background. Try the preview and see if that different heading violation that we introduced actually has consequence here. No, it's still not popping up. Okay, so that's a funny thing, and there we did get some feedback when we first took a look at these accessibility checks. We did get a little feedback that they may not be super reliable. So it's not entirely surprising to me that we did get a violation pulled up on the previous version of Quarto, and that same violation's not coming up on this newer version. Huh, that's interesting. Okay. Anyway, we're not going to get to the other ones. Sorry for that. If you really want to see them, let me know and we can check them out. We can check them out next week. Otherwise, there's Quarto 1.0 or Quarto 10. I'll now be using that starting from now until for quite some time, I would guess. We'll try to do an install every time they come out on these weekly sessions. I probably won't do all the installs live. You guys, hopefully, you saw it was a pretty easy process. There wasn't much that I can imagine getting in the way, other than kind of security firewall issues that someone might have with a work computer. That sometimes does throw a little bit of an issue. Okay, so I think that's it for this week. Thanks, everybody. If you have an idea of something you'd like to see for next week, let me know. Otherwise, I might look for a Reveal JS kind of topic, because as I was talking about using this process to create documents, and I talked about how I still like to do Reveal.js slides, it kind of dawned on me that we haven't had a Reveal.js session for quite some time now. So maybe we'll do something with Reveal slides or other type of slides. So let me know if you want to see something. Otherwise, thank you for attending, and I will see you next week.